Hey, Rainy Joe here, and this is 1000 Reviews, the series where I plan on reviewing every single album from the 1001 Albums Listened to Before You Die book. And today we are looking at Tom Waits' 1980 album, Heartattack and Vine. Heartattack and Vine was released underneath the Asylum label, produced by Bones Howe, with art direction from Ron Coro and Norman Ung, with nationality USA and a running time of 44 minutes and 25 seconds. Heartattack and Vine is often considered by many to be a transitional record for Tom Waits. As much of his style and sound was progressing at this point, and feels like this record especially is a bridge between his earlier work from the 70s and his later work in the 80s and 90s that would go a more experimental route. And because of that, you can pick up on certain styles that are slowly being integrated into Tom Waits' music that would appear later in his music. But at the same time, this does feel like a very early concept of that, and a quite rough one at that. The opening title track here, Heartattack and Vine, is a pretty great one of my favorite tracks on here, as it completely introduces you into this very smoky world that feels as if it dominates this entire record. And it's quite a lyrically great track at that, with a great instrumental to back that up. Lyrics such as, "Don't you know there ain't no devil, there's just God when he's drunk," which is actually a pretty interesting and quite humorous line. Something that Tom Waits would mix quite a bit into his music is these very almost satirical-like lines that paint quite a picture. In fact, this line apparently stems from a time where Tom Waits was sitting drunk and attempting to burn a spider, and he realized that God must be doing the same thing when he has a few drinks himself. But this line especially is a great one to showcase the lyrical ability of Tom Waits. On top of that, his voice is instantly recognizable in this song as being something completely unique and original, as he has a very grovelly voice. If you know Tom Waits, you would recognize and instantly catch on to this very distinct sort of style. It's like if you took Tom Waits' vocal cords and stretched them along a gravelly dirt road and then ran them over multiple times and then just stuck them right back into his throat and told him to sing a tune. That's what this sounds like. They are extremely rough and feel almost completely beaten away. And perhaps this is due to the fact that Tom Waits has been smoking and drinking since the age of 9, and so it's taken quite a toll on him. But in a way, this is kind of a gift, one might argue, because this is definitely a style that is truly original to Tom Waits. It's not necessarily for everyone. In fact, it wasn't even really for me at first, but with more and more repeated listens, I began to attune to it and catch on to its appeal. In Shades is the second track here, which is purely instrumental and strips away all Tom Waits' vocals, which in some ways just does wonders for this album and provides more of that atmosphere that was laid down on the first one, feeling very grimy, very sleazy, and overall just a very dirty track. It's a slow track, and it's meticulous with how it continues to layer itself and develop this smoky atmosphere. But then there is the track Saving All My Love For You, which is the first of many slow songs on here that I think are more of a hindrance to Tom Waits. Tracks like Saving All My Love For You, Ruby's Arms, or even On the Nickel go for a much slower, overdramatic approach that doesn't feel as if he is being completely authentic. It feels almost soap opera-ish and overblown in its dramatic nature. And especially on Saving All My Love For You, where I think Tom Waits' vocals especially feel significantly weaker than anywhere else on the album, most of the time feeling as if he is forcing the tune rather than just singing it quite soulfully. The tracks that I do prefer are the faster ones, or the more up-tempo, sleazy tracks that I mentioned before, such as Heartattack and Vine, or Till the Money's Run Out, which is the 7th track. The drum line especially of this one just instantly hooks you in and brings you into this dark and sleazy world that I have previously mentioned, and continues to add to the atmosphere of this album. And Jersey Girl is one of the few tracks here where I think the slower, down-tempo track kind of mixes well with Tom Waits' style, as it feels as if half this track incorporates elements of the slower tracks here, such as On the Nickel, bringing in a more down-tempo style, while at the same time maintaining a very distinct and unique atmospheric approach of many of the other tracks on here, like I mentioned, Heartattack and Vine. And so with that all being said, this album is a bit of a hit or miss with most of the tracks. Some of them I think are purely fantastic and definitely worth a listen, while the rest of it I feel is definitely Tom Waits out of his element and still not quite in tune with this experimental nature that he is kind of dabbling in here. As I said before, this is definitely a transitional record for Tom Waits and is not one of his best. And instead, if you are looking for truly iconic and original Tom Waits that stands on its own through and through, then records like Swordfish Trombone and Rain Dogs are definitely more standoutish and are definitely far more iconic for Tom Waits than Heartattack and Vine. So with that all being said, the soft rating of this album for me came to a 6.8 out of 10, and I will harden that rating to a 7 out of 10. It's still above average, but it's not necessarily a great album, and it's not too significant either, other than laying down a bit of groundwork for what's to come for Mr. Waits. And of course, with that in mind, that makes this, for me, a NE for not essential. It isn't absolutely essential for the general music listener and is maybe essential for a Tom Waits fan. But beyond that, this isn't a must listen for just about anyone. If you are looking for Tom Waits and want more of his iconic albums, like I said, Rain Dogs, Swordfish Trombone, or his 1990 album Bone Machine would definitely be better picks. All right, random number generator, 1 to 1001, generate. 955, quite a new album, which will be 955 being Lupe Fiasco's Food and Liquor. So go ahead and listen to Food and Liquor by Lupe Fiasco, and I'll review that in about 1 week from now. Anyways, that pretty much does it for this video. If you like the video, please hit like and subscribe if you want to follow along listening to every album from the 1000 Albums to Listen To Before You Die book. And as always, my name is Randy Joe, and I'm signing off.